The city of the Puma lies perched 11,000 feet in the sky. As the divine center of the universe, it is the capital of the mighty Inca Empire. Its stones adorned with gold, silver, and emeralds. Its grandeur is unrivaled in South America. Yet this wealth and prestige would prove to be its very undoing. For the city of the Puma would come to an even more fearsome and insatiable predator, the Spanish conquistadors. This is Cusco, and this is its story. Hello, and welcome back to the Historical Humans Podcast. My name is Justin Woods, and I'm joined today by my co host, Coleman. And today, we are talking about the great city of Cusco. The Cusco is home of all of the Inca Empire. Uh,
You want to try that again, man? So yes, this is the city of Cusco, capital of the Inca Empire. It is the city of the Puma, not the llama. I'm sorry, Disney fans.
Boo, boo.
Um, and yeah, it's a Peruvian city, and it served as the capital of the Inca Empire. It's got a fairly interesting history that is actually ranges from mythological to semi-mythological to horrifyingly historical as the story of how this city kind of came to be and what happened to it.
It's one of the really most interesting stories because the Spanish were the direct fall of the Aztecs. They were a pretty good contributing factor to the Mayans, though the Mayans were severely reduced. But here we see an empire quite literally ground to a halt because of the Spanish, and arguably, I think the Incas and in Peru in general really got the shit end of the conquistador spirit because Cortez was a bastard. However, there were so many worse people stomping all through South America.
Yeah, oh yeah, and one of those guys gets to show up here for the Inca, which had like just finished their golden age remodeling of the entire city when the Spanish show up. Like the Inca were still on the rise. They were at the height of their Inca power. And well, first we got to figure out how they get there. So our story for the Inca is going to come with a little bit of background information. The first of which is that Cusco is, it's not just the name of the city, it's the name of the entire freaking region it's in. And Cusco was seen by the Inca as the center of what they called Tawantinsuyu, which is the land of the four quarters. Those four quarters being the four quarters of the earth. Fun fact, the Incas basically felt that the universe existed entirely within the mountains that they lived on.
I mean, one, I was hoping that they were just really big fans of basketball. And two, they really employed their geometry, and that's going to become one of the foundational aspects for how they designed the city because the Incans had such a precise method of carving stones to be used in buildings that you could not get anything between the two. Like if you took a modern piece of paper, you could not fit it between two rocks. Something that Europe quite truly never developed before the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, this would definitely infuriate the conquistadors who, as this really worked against their idea of repurposing the existing structures for themselves. If you can't knock down the wall, it, it really gets in your way.
Well, and
Um,
that's where the siege of Cusco also plays a very decisive
oh, yeah.
role.
Lots of spoilers. Lots of spoilers. We've got 100+ years. We actually got several thousand years of history to get through for this. Because you see, the Inca Empire was established in the year 1400. It's overthrown by the conquistadors in 1534. And when the conquistadors show up, it was the largest empire in the Americas up to that point in history, and it was the largest in the world at the time. So this is a formidable people. This is the capital of the greatest empire on Earth. And it's going to get destroyed in about 6 months.
It's it's quite the interesting story though, because the Incans were so advanced for their times. I mean, are we gonna even brush on their road network or their written language?
No, unfortunately, that does not come up as we are focusing on this history of the city of Cusco, Cusco City, as you keep making me say.
Yes.
Uh, there
um,
were so many pitch meetings regarding this one, guys. You don't even want to know.
you know, we love Cusco, the city of Cusco, Cusco's homeland. If you know that reference, comment down below. We love it.
Squeak, squeak, squeakity, squeak.
But one of the things where Cusco, the city, actually becomes such a very interesting location is it. Their road network was so extensive that Cusco was in the heart of it. They would traverse mountain ranges, deserts, open prairie, open plains, and this city was the center of it all.
Oh yeah, yep. This is the center of their empire. It's the center of the universe. God help you if you disagree. No, quite literally, they made you worship the city. um, yeah, it's and what's interesting is that the Inca, with all this obsession with like symmetry and the four quarters and everything, that doesn't apply to their urban planning. They're so much more practical than that. Because you see, they give their city the nickname the City of the Puma because they design its outline to look like a large beast, to look like a puma in motion.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And a big part of that was where they are. They're on an ancient glacier bed 11,000 feet into the air at the intersection of just a couple of natural valleys that weave through some of the mountains. There's 3 rivers that cross right at the heart of the city, and the Inca revere this landscape. So they will not divert the rivers. So they build around it, and they create the head of the puma, the body of the puma, and the tail of the puma as 3 distinct sections of the city to accommodate these rivers and this valley.
Let's also just talk about one. Rivers were like the honeypot when it came to city building and establishment, because when you have rivers, you have fresh water, and where you have fresh water, you have fish and agriculture and irrigation. It all kind of worked in cohesion and was really a great place strategically to build it. The fact that they were 11,000 feet up in the mountains, though, is truly like nothing to scoff at. They're well over a mile high at that point.
Yep. Oh yeah, definitely. And they they really do they really do prove themselves masters of building into and around the environment with this. Because in this oddly shaped Puma City, you get a couple of very interesting subdivisions. The first is the 4 quarters. Each quarter of the body of the Puma was the district that housed exclusively the people from that corner of their empire. So if you were from the Southwest, you lived in the Southwest corner of the Puma. If you were from the Northeast, you lived in the Northeast corner of the Puma. This is not negotiable. And that's because they really saw their empire as the universe and their city as the microcosm of that universe. And so they did everything to imitate it. They further subdivide the city between the Hanan and Hurin, which is the higher and lower parts of the city. And that's because the Inca had 2 social classes, the working people and the nobility. There's not really anything in between. The nobility are the warriors, the nobility are the tradesmen, the working people just do the labor. There's not a middle ground for that.
You mean in a stratified city, there's not much middle ground?
Nope. No, there
Yeah,
really isn't.
the class system was very prevalent here, and it was shown in almost every aspect of life, even down to the different areas you lived in, but the different houses, the different style of houses. The
Yep.
types of food you could eat and the types of places you should just even go.
Yep. Yep. And by the time the Spanish roll around to this city, there's 150,000 people in it,
That
which
is
is
not any small feat.
insane. That is insanely impressive. Um, there really are no million-person cities on Earth at this time. Uh, Thanks in part to Cortez. Kind of
Ooh.
eliminates the last one.
I mean, when you look at this time frame, because the Spanish came in what, the 1530s.
Yep, yeah, 1534. They just
At
run right through the city.
at this point, the population of London was smaller.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's not, like, so this place is massive
Like
by.
when you talk London, London at the same time period had 50 to 60,000 people total.
Yep. Yeah, and they were starting to choke themselves to death on that with the beginnings of the industrial revolutions and shit. They were just choking themselves to death in there because guess what? Even before the machines, London was built like shit.
Well, yeah, it basically is built out of footpaths paved over, continuously paved over, and expanded on in a radial fashion.
Meanwhile, the Inca have designed their city from scratch. They will do this multiple times throughout their history. Um, to the point where they just, well, you'll see. They have a couple people who are get really revered in their history for basically redesigning Cusco to make sure it works.
God, the feckin' city planners really having a go at it here.
Yep.
Arguably one of the earliest timeframes we see true city planning employed.
Yep.
But I don't know if that's
Now,
a conversation we're ready to have yet.
yeah. No, no. I don't think we're ready to have that conversation. The dumpster fire that is America right now. But the Inca, um, kind of justify all this attention and all this sacred space, all this, sort of reverence that they're putting into this city and all the effort into stylizing it through a myth that claims that Cusco was established by the first Inca. See, in the beginning times, there were only eight Inca, from whom all the other Inca are descended. These Inca were led by Manco Capac and Mama Oclo, and they were created by the gods of the Inca, specifically Viracocha and Inti, which is the supreme creator of the universe and the sun. They came together to make the Inca. And when the Inca are first brought to life on Earth, they emerge into the Cusco Valley. And they're on this journey because the sun god has given them a golden staff. And they are told that wherever they can plunge this staff into the earth is their divine home. And Cusco is prime farming land thanks to these three rivers in this little glacial valley surrounded by other valleys on the top of these giant ass mountains. So it's probably the first and only place for miles and miles around where you can plow the earth.
Yeah, it's pretty much an oasis in a very inhospitable environment. And the Inca would also sacrifice people in those same mountains.
Oh, yeah.
A
Yep.
lot of sacrifice.
Yeah, there's a lot of sacrifice to ensure the prosperity of Cusco. We don't get into that too much here because it is only tangential to the city of Cusco. Now, these eight Inca, they settle Cusco when they arrive in the valley and their divine golden staff can be plunged into the earth. Except they're not the first people to live here.
No, they're just the
And,
first Inca.
yeah, they're the first Inca. And almost immediately, the locals a people called the Chanca take offense to these Incas showing up and decide that they don't want these Inca living in their very fertile valley doing things. So the Inca beat the ever-loving shit out of them until they leave. And they drive out the Chanca to secure their divine valley because, there might only be 8 Inca at this time. But they have the literal power of God on their side.
Yeah, but God said I could have it. It's mine.
Yeah. Never caused a problem in human history, ever.
Not once.
Now, what's funny is about all this is there is historical records to indicate that the Inca actually did, in fact, do this. There is a war with the Chanca in 1438, which the Inca win. So, the Inca appeared to have shown up around 1400, held on to their city for 30 or 40 years before finally winning a war and getting it more or less accepted by the people around them that this is theirs, everyone else back off.
This is mine. Everyone else leave me alone.
Yeah. Yeah. It is theirs and it is for them.
And only me.
Now, the Chanca arguably had a better claim to the land because there's evidence that a people called the Chanapata lived in Cusco as early as the year 500. And the Chanapata were pretty primitive by comparison to the Inca and Chanca and all the other people that come later. The Chanapata did a lot of decorative pottery, but they didn't construct major structures. There's no great huts, no massive stone monuments. They're not builders. They don't even use metal. And the Chanca are kind of the successors of the Chanapata. So they've got about 1,000-year claim to this land. And the Inca just kind of walk in and says, the sun says it's ours, back out.
I mean, realistically, obviously they have their creation story, their creation background. Realistically, they definitely descended from some group at some point. So I don't think I don't think it'd be out of the realm of possibility that they were a smaller, more regionalized tribe that eventually managed to overcome.
See, here's one of the fun tricks with that. You get a third player that gets involved in this. That kind of explains some of those interesting points.
Okay.
Enter the forgotten empire of the Tiwanaku. The Tiwanaku are Bolivians, and they rule as sort of a tribute vassal system the Cusco Valley until about 1100, as they kind of collapsed throughout the 12th century. And under the Tiwanaku, Cusco is this minor settlement on the edge of the empire. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have any importance. Except when the Incas show up, they bring with them the Tiwanaku building style.
Ooh.
So the Inca are potentially understood as an offshoot branch of the collapsing Tiwanaku that show up and say, hey, this southern region that's kind of fertile and everyone really neglected? Well, it's the home of our new empire. Locals get out. And the Chanca, who were more or less happy to throw tribute at the Tiwanaku to get them to stay the fuck away, understandably object to this.
They're like, no, this is ours.
And sort of because of this, the Inca are the successor state to the Tiwanaku. Cusco begins to grow as Tiwanaku declines in the 12th century. It becomes their grand capital of a new independent state under Inca Roca in the 14th century. And that's kind of where the city really begins to take off. And that's when the fight between the Chanca and the Inca begins, because now the Inca are somebodies and they want to be somebodies and stay somebodies. And that means basically telling the Chanca to bow down to them now. Chanca don't like that.
No, I can imagine why.
Yeah. And this kind of sets the pattern for the rest of the history of Cusco. Inca ruler comes into being because the old one dies, builds a self aggrandizing palace in the city of the Puma to declare a new era of wealth, prosperity, and glory. That new ruler, in order to validate this new era, picks a neighbor, conquers them, and extracts all their tradesmen to go ensure that the new city looks grand and beautiful, and that he actually is able to make good on his campaign promise of make Cusco greater.
That's not a half bad idea. When you don't have the home sourced labor, you bring in an outsider who is more skilled than you ever were.
Yep.
You mean there's benefit to adding external populations to a pool?
Yeah. Yeah. And the Inca are masters of this. And that's kind of the pattern of their whole civilization. It makes everyone else hate them. But at the same time, they don't have to care because, as far as they know, they are the most powerful beings in existence. They're winning.
Okay, but that doesn't help when your entire existential viewpoint is the nearby valley and region.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the Inca just start rapidly expanding, and they set up Cusco as an administrative and religious center. It's the home of ceremony. It's not meant to be this, centralized government. It's meant to be the place where all your tribute comes. It's meant to be where all the pretty wealth goes, and it's meant to be the center of worship. It's not meant to be like like this. It's not meant to be like what a lot of other capitals are in the world at this time, which is kind of this bustling, um, like singular central government. It's just sort of meant to suck up the wealth and talent of the area around it and spit out religious iconography.
I mean, that's one way to unify a bunch of outside populations. That's why religion becomes such a vibrant tool for a lot of empires.
Yeah, and kind of how they maintain their control doing this is they take in the craftsmen, they take in like sons of leaders, and they have the craftsmen design glorious things, some of which we'll talk about in the capital of the Inca Empire. So your craftsmen don't want to go to war with this city because all their hard work's in it. Your rulers don't want to go to war with the city because their children are there. And most importantly, while you're in this city, everyone who comes there is encouraged to worship the city as this sacred blessing from the sun and creator. So when they go back, Inca make sure to bring with them the worship of the city of Cusco. Effectively it turns it into, would you nuke the Vatican City? Would you bomb Mecca? And the answer for most of the people in the surrounding areas is no.
Well, especially when it's internalized and you have similar belief systems. Like it's
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what they're doing. They're effectively converting the populace using their city as a sacred center. And that does a lot to protect them because, well, everyone hates the Inca. Everyone loves Cusco. Cusco is much loved.
God, it's like Paris. God, I hate this city, but man, is it beautiful.
Yes, yes, they turn everyone into the French.
No, a crime worse than death. Oh, that is very interesting though about how many people actually enjoyed and celebrated. And I mean, when you see beautiful crafts like that, you tend to take note of it.
Oh yeah. And they they really do. And in the 15th century, they really go at it. There's a major rebuild. A man named Pachacuti Inca Yupanque, who is known in history as Pachacuti. He's arguably the most famous of the Inca kings, despite the fact that he's not around when the Spanish show up, which just kind of shows how important he is. A lot of the really famous in the popular imagination rulers of indigenous empires are the ones who are in charge when the Europeans come over and start writing about them. And that's not the case. And that speaks a lot to what he's going to do. Because Pachacuti looks at this wonderful city with all these temples of the past emperors and all the wealth that's flowing into it. And it says, we can do better. So he just starts leveling shit and rebuilding it. Uh, he's one of the few to engage in total landscape redesign. He drains a swamp that sits to the north of the city center and builds what's called Sacsayhuaman, which is a massive fortress of the Inca there. And it's actually the head of the Puma.
We also just talked about the fact he straight up just drained the swamp. Something
Yeah.
that people have like said that they would do for years and years and years. And then he
Yeah.
just goes and does it. And then it is interesting though when you look at overall civilizations as a whole, is that's a very common trend is they try to basically make a name for themselves. They try to do something monumental, something where their legacy will remain and continue on despite everything else.
Yeah.
And this is another evidence of such thing, just with monumental architecture and also man versus nature type infrastructure projects.
Yeah. And he successfully drains this very literal swamp, puts a major fortress on top of it. So now, this is kind of like Cusco's revered. Everyone hates the Inca. And he kind of realizes that, religious zealotry only gets you so far. We're going to build a massive garrison here to ensure that we can defend our city. And it works. It's the primary defense of Cusco. It's a garrison of 1,000 men, and it's pretty much impossible to take. There's 3 sort of zigzag terraces you have to go up in order to get into it. Everything is compartmentalized, and there are 2 to 3 different angles from which people can throw things at you if you are walking into this building at any given point.
That's another interesting thing about the study of empires is one of the things we're able to tell, especially from architecture, is what the climate was like at the time, the political climate, and the fact that they are building really intricate, really well thought out and designed defensive fortifications tells you that there probably was a pretty good and valid threat of warfare or of things breaking out that they were just outright trying to avoid.
Yeah. At the time of Pachacuti, the Inca have their empire and they have a lot of wealth. And so he's rebuilding the empire, but with rebuilding Cusco with that wealth. However, all the people he took it from hate the guts of the Inca. And it turns out that there's a lot more that goes into administering vassals than there is that goes into raiding different local neighbors. And, this is reflecting the shift to a long term relationship with semi hostile entities.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The other thing he does is he restructures the Coricancha temple complex. Now, Coricancha is the most sacred Inca temples in the most sacred Inca city, located at the center of the Inca universe. So, to tear this down and rebuild it is a major move. And he justifies it by arguing that the opulence of these temples, this greatest, most sacred site, does not reflect the opulence worthy of the gods who gave us this empire. That's the PR campaign.
It needs to be bigger because the gods who did this for us are so great.
Yep. And consequently, I will be so great, the greatest of the Inca kings, if I'm the one that does it.
Naturally, naturally.
naturally, of course. Alexander, when he's listing off all the triumphs of his father, and he ends with myself playing my own small part in that role. Dude, you won like the decisive battle by yourself. Stop humble bragging. You won that whole war.
Of course, you had to find a way to bring your classical studies into this.
Listen, we're bringing the Europeans to Cusco. Okay, that is the end goal of this video.
This is North American history, or South American. This is American history.
Yep. And so, because Cusco is this holy place worshipped by all the Inca subjects and all their conquered people, he basically takes his tribute for a couple years. Not gold or silver or wealthy lord's sons. He starts abducting all the craftsmen. And so he has like the entire labor force of the Inca Empire tearing down and rebuilding this structure in order to get it done in a timely manner.
Just the fact that he's a patron of the arts and willing to honor craft skillsmen, like, you gotta respect it a little bit. The whole abducting them and forcibly causing them to work for you, not the greatest look, but it was a different time.
But to be fair, your ruler is pretty happy because he didn't have to give the Inca any shiny things this year. He just had to sell them you. And you know how it is with rich people. Now, the exact details of what happens in the Corachanca, we're going to get into in a little bit, because he also does Pachacuti also does one more thing to restructure the city, and this is what fully completes the satellite image of Cusco as the city of the Puma. He puts a tail on it. He pins the tail on the Puma. And to form this tail, he builds what's called Puma Chupa, which is the imperial city. It's where he gets to live and administer governance. So he builds like a whole little like forbidden city within his city to rule from. So if anything goes wrong, he just has to pull on the tail of the Puma to get it to do what he wants. And he's kind of successfully divided things up pretty easily. Government is in the Puma Chupan tail. The main city of Cusco is the body of the Puma. And his new fortress of Sacsayhuaman is its head. And because he's completely redone everything, and because the Inca are this obsessed with their city, Pachacute gets the title Reverser of the World. Because he undid the universe and remade it in the image he wanted. The universe, of course, being, according to the Inca, their city. The city of the Inca. If you're getting a sense of how big their egos are and how obsessed the Inca are with this city, please understand, we are understating things.
I really do appreciate the fact of taking pride in your city and wanting it to be this great opulent thing. Like, we really have lost that across the world. And, like, to a degree, I think Dubai has emulated that, Hong Kong, Singapore, some of those cities, but you don't see it to the same regard where they're like, we need to have the best of the best architecture, we need to have the best of the best design, We need this to be well thought out, well planned out, and have a
Yeah.
functional purpose. Granted, they were a very heavily stratified society, so every class also subsequently had their own area, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a, it's a different story.
The idea of aggrandizement and beautification through architecture is something that doesn't really exist anymore. And under Pachacuti, it reaches its height for the Inca. And one of the interesting things with how stratified this society is that living in Cusco itself is reserved for the priests and the aristocrats. You have to be rich or holy to actually reside in the city. And there's only about 40,000 people within Cusco as well. There's only about 40,000 of the 150,000 people that qualify as Cusco's populace in the city itself. The rest of them, all the poor people, live outside the city walls in a series of small suburbs.
I was gonna say they developed the fucking suburbs where all the skilled labor goes into the city, marches on, works for the rich people who live above you, and then you just go on march your happy ass back outside the wall.
Yep. Now, about half of these are farming communities, and the other half are all the laborers Pachacuti stole.
God, it really is the suburbs. Oh look, there's Farmer Joe down the yard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull into my lovely little subdivision of all the other craftsmen.
Yep. You're not rich enough to work here. Not to mention, they needed a lot of craftsmen because keep in mind the city is still subdivided based on what region you're from. So God forbid you have a northeastern craftsman work in a southern district.
That sounds miserable.
Yeah. If you're wondering why the Inca, everyone hates the Inca, it's because of internal divisions like this. Everyone hates everyone else in this empire. No one is happy. Well, the Inca are pretty happy. I mean, they're the ones ruling it.
God, the Inca were wild.
Yep. Now, the Corachanca here, to show you how rich they are, the nickname for this temple, which is the most ornate and grandest part of Cusco, was called the Golden Enclosure, said to be placed on the exact center of the world, give or take 50 feet. And it consisted of 5 temples for the 5 major gods of the Inca. Inti, the sun god, who helped form the Inca. Mama Kilia, the moon goddess. Viracocha, the creator god, who also helped with the founding of the Inca people. Ilyapa, the thunder god, who we shall not piss off. And Kuichu, the rainbow god. That's right. He's the god of rainbows. He's also probably one of the scarier ones. Because, and I might be wrong about this, but I'm about 75% certain that he's the death and rebirth guy.
Oh, jeez.
So, the restoration after the storm, so don't piss him off either.
It's interesting, too, how the symbols and iconography all kind of run together and have their own flavors to them as well.
Yep. South American rainbows, badass. American rainbows, gay. I can say that. I know what I am.
Oh my god, yeah, exactly. Like that. There's just different interpretations of it. That's all. But my favorite part about this that was previously mentioned is their building style. Their walls that they built were built without any use of mortar, and as I mentioned before, you cannot get a piece of paper under that wall. You cannot get anything in the crack. It is less than 1 millimeter all around. It is so precise that the fucking History Channel for the past 20 years has been saying aliens did it.
Yep. One of the fun things about it too is these blocks are big. Like they are cyclopean masonry level big. So a lot of the stones are as big as you are, if not more. And if you try lifting solid ass granite the size of you, you're gonna need about a dozen other friends to help you with. So the Inca like really had to invest in putting these things down. Like this is not like tiny little bricks where you can like shave it, squeeze it on. No, this was over large, large stones.
And there is a certain margin of error that could occur that would lead them to be out of alignment. But again, they were some of the most skilled craftsmen in the entire world at this point, definitely in the region, working on this project. And
And
they got a system
any
down.
anything that was misaligned would just get chucked down the mountain. Because we're not using a defective block in our holy temple at the center of the universe, give or take 50 feet.
Their absolute precision is next level, and they're some of the earliest and most advanced engineers we had up until the modern day with the use of modern technology. And it's just
Yep.
the idea that a more primitive people than we are had such advanced technology and had such great skill, a lot of people tend to default that it was actually aliens.
Yeah. And there's actually one very fun thing that is absolute proof that aliens did not do this, which is the buildings inside. So you're using these massive stones to make these giant buildings, right? How tall are you going to make them? What are you going to make the roof out of, right? Well, if you've got super advanced technology like we do or like extraterrestrials would have, you could go 5, 10, 15 stories up in the air easily. Thatch them with, iron and gold and stone. Instead, um, the Inca could only build about 1 story up with this before they started breaking things. And the enclosures are so big, they couldn't roof them properly using anything but twigs and hay. It's a literal 1 story thatch roof. And, that's their style. That's also the limit of their technology. They can't go further up. They're high enough up that doesn't really matter. And, thatch roof is a thatch roof. Works good on the other buildings. There's, as much as they would have liked probably to make it more ornate, there's only so much space you can gap for a hole. A good example of this is the Duomo in Florence. The dome for the big cathedral there was so big. It was such a big gap that it was just an open hole for decades because the best architects in all of Europe could not figure out how to put a dome on it. And that's a similar problem to what the Inca have here. Now, twigs and hay and grass and stuff for your roof seems like a pretty mundane letdown for how ostentatious this place is supposed to be, the golden enclosure.
Yeah, but you just gotta make the doors gold or the windows or
Yeah.
some shit.
Oh yeah, the Inca absolutely overcompensate on everything.
Don't tell me. Do not. Don't say it.
The doors, golden.
God damn it! I
The,
knew it.
the walls, emerald.
Wow.
Just emerald studded walls.
It's like me when I played
Everywhere.
Minecraft.
Yeah. Yeah. The Temple of the Sun made, lined in gold. Temple of the Moon lined in silver.
No wonder the Spanish thought they had fucking the city of El Dorado, the city of
Yeah.
gold.
It gets worse because inside this enclosure is basically the entire Cusco Valley in miniature to honor the more agriculturally based gods like the god of thunder and the god of rainbows and them lot. Because there's this massive garden with life-size gold and silver imitations of crops and livestock. The entire ecosystem of Cusco was represented there, including insects, butterflies, and mosquitoes carved exquisitely in life size out of silver and put on the crops.
No wonder the Spanish were obsessed and wanted to conquer them, and quite honestly, did it so quickly.
Yep. This is where all the money went.
Ah, and this enabled Cortez and the rest of those bastards. God damn it!
Yep. Now, one of the fun things about these structures is in the temples were also the tombs for the Inca emperors and their wives, whose bodies would get paraded out during certain ceremonies. Yeah, yeah. They were, this is kind of like the glass coffin of Lenin thing, is what happened to the Incan emperors after they died.
They would just come parade them around.
Yeah, you get, because they're being brought out, because keep in mind, the Inca emperor is the representative of the Inca pantheon on Earth. Their will flows through him, and the Inca's divine offerings flow back to the gods through him. So, raid him around for the ceremony to make sure that, hey, we got your vessel. See, it's gathering up all the good warship. See, we're doing a good job. Tell him we're doing a good job. Make the storm stop.
Those bastards.
Yeah. Unfortunately for the Inca, after talking about all this gold and silver, we come to the year 1533. And a man by the name of Francisco Pizarro, who proceeds to promptly sack the city upon finding it. Now, in fairness to those big fortifications that the Inca had as the head of their panther over in Sacsayhuaman, when Pizarro comes up, he's basically playing the game on easy mode, because trickling down into South America from his predecessors is smallpox. And the Inca have just been wiped out by it. The disease had just a few years prior killed the Inca emperor Huayna Capac, which started 2 separate civil wars among the Inca. One was a war of independence between the northern conquered vassal city-states and the Inca Empire. And war number 2 was a civil war between Huayna's 2 sons. The Inca Empire only sustains its existence through military might and expansionistic conquests. So these 2 wars start a bit of a downward spiral for them, because as the Inca are dying from disease, they're killing each other in wars. They look weaker and weaker, prompting more and more people to rebel, prompting more and more wars, prompting the Inca to look weaker, prompting more rebellions. And the system is just in shambles.
Can I tell you a few facts about Mr. Pizarro here, Mr. Francisco Pizarro?
By all means, it's taken aside to talk about our friendly Spanish and conquistador.
Can you just take a gander, a thought? Who do you think one of his cousins are?
I'm gonna guess he was also related to Cortez.
He was second cousin through his father to Hernan Cortez.
Yep.
The bastard of Mexico. And then, do you know what else ran in Pizarro's family? Because it wasn't just his cousin. Him and his 3 brothers, there were 4 of them in total, all contributed and were active conquistadors that directly went after the Incan empires. Because if there's something that brings family together in this world, it is conquering foreign nations.
Money.
It's a lovely, lovely little story. And Mr.
I'm
Pizarro,
here for God, gold, and glory, but I'll take 2 out of the 3.
I'm here for God, gold, and glory, and I'm all out of God. it just, and then he went on to become the governor of New Castile. So, he is one of the direct causes for the specific fall of Cuzco, the city for Cuzco, the homeland of Cuzco, and
Yeah.
just how one man could decimate an entire population. And you did mention the smallpox. Disease played a massive role in it. Plus, the Spanish had this lovely little policy of convert or else. However, one of the things that they always struggled with is they didn't always necessarily translate what they were saying.
Yeah.
They would
Now,
just start speaking Latin to you and expect you to understand and to convert. And when you were like, what?
yeah. Yeah, no, I believe I remember there was an incident involving a book where someone handed uh, one of the South American nobles a book and he didn't know what it was. He couldn't read it. So he put it on the ground and the Spanish just massacred everyone around him because he put a Bible on the earth, thus insulting God
I mean,
because he didn't know what a book was.
the Mayans had one of the most extensive libraries. They had thousands, hundreds of thousands of books that were printed on parchment and everything, and the Spanish burned all of it.
Yeah.
The
Speaking of the burning and disrespect, guess what happened to all of that gold and stuff in 1534 after Pizarro sacks it?
they quite literally took it all and then wiped out everyone who left.
Yep. They destroyed every part of the city they could because there's so much wealth in it. Most of the buildings in the city were destroyed and looted. Those that weren't were torn down and reused for Spanish projects like erecting a Catholic church
Usually
or
on top of,
building a proper governor's home for the Spanish to live in.
they would
Um,
effectively build their churches on top of the former
yep,
temples.
yep. And do you know how much of all that wealth survived? 3 stalks of golden corn.
That's all that survives to this day.
That's all that's still there
Yikes.
in the sacred site because apparently there was so much money in Cusco, even a conquistador couldn't spend it all.
I mean, we talk about it. The Spanish saw this and it was the first taste of blood. Because then they went
Yeah, and
to the Aztecs who had large amounts of silver and gold as well.
and the thing too with the Spanish and this thing too is they had help. Most of the Inca subjects, all these vassals that they have that really hate them, help the Spanish because as far as they're concerned, we can trade a tyrant 50 miles away with a tyrant 5,000 miles away. And that one's going to be easier to get rid of.
Yeah, they really
They are
didn't
wrong
care.
about this, and they will pay dearly.
I mean, that is arguably one of the things the Spanish did, was as they landed and would enter these areas, they would make friends and they'd basically say, like, who's the biggest asshole around here? And all the smaller groups would just point, they are them.
Yeah.
You go
Yeah.
you go up this way around the corner, follow that road,
Yeah.
it'll take you right to their front door.
Yeah.
It's like sending the FBI to your enemy's house. The FBI comes, is there someone in the neighborhood who's causing a problem? Yeah, it's that asshole. It's Jerry, third house down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then your house gets blown up in the subsequent firefight.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Cusco, for its part, and the Inca do not take this invasion lying down, even though their city is sacked and looted and being forcibly rearranged. There is a final stand in 1536 when Manco Inca Yapanque, the kind of last real Inca emperor, starts a 10-month rebellion where he holds up in that fortress that is the Puma's Head and basically dares the Spanish to get rid of him.
Bet you can't. Bet you won't.
Yeah. This brings about the siege of Cusco and this final attempt to restore the Inca Empire and expel the Spanish. Unfortunately, it does end in a Spanish victory. The Inca fail, as the Spanish are quite literally at this point infinite. You can't, the Inca are trapped in their little valley and they're trapped in this one fortress. The Spanish are kind of content to lock them in there.
And they just keep building and building and building.
Yeah, and, you need artillery to really get through the walls, and the Spanish are like, okay, we can wait for the artillery to come up the mountain.
Yeah, they cut off all the supply routes. They made allies with the other small neighboring tribes. Like, it just was a cataclysmic shitfall, but the Spanish were calculated on it. They intentionally knew what they were doing, and they
Yeah,
targeted very specific groups.
yeah, yeah,
It's just interesting, and that really is what led to a lot of the city being destroyed, and they would end up building it back up.
mm-hmm.
But the Spanish also would lay siege because it gave them time to bring reinforcements, both from the coast, like you said, bring artillery up the mountain, but also in that same time frame, in a 10-month long span, the Spanish would have had someone go back to Spain, come back with 6 ships more, and bring them along over.
That is actually what does break the siege, because the siege of Cusco is kind of a siege within the siege. Spanish are holed up in one section, Inca are holed up in the other. They both kind of trap themselves in there, and uh, there's a man, I can't quite remember his name. I think it's like Almagro. Uh, News that he's got another Spanish army marching up the mountain to to basically just level anything that gets in his way, reaches the Inca, and they decide to flee rather than face what's coming. And so they disperse, and that's kind of the end of any organized resistance. The siege of Cusco is broken, and the city falls under Spanish sway. The Spanish kind of rebuilt the basic structure of the city. They replaced their temples with churches, but they kind of do a bit of a one-to-one. They don't really see a need to reorganize the layout beyond replacing Inca imperial stuff with Spanish imperial stuff, and Inca religious icons with Spanish Catholic icons.
Well, arguably, and as much as I hate to argue this point, that's where the Spanish really did benefit in terms of their form of colonialism. Because when you look at North American colonialism, the 4 or 5 major colonial groups that came over, you have the French, the English, the Spanish, the Portuguese, and the Dutch. They all had their own flavor and their own way to go about it. The French would eventually integrate themselves with Native American society, and they had a pretty strong grasp because of that. The Spanish would basically destroy your temple, force you to convert, but as long as you did that and installed their form of government, it would basically maintain, whereas the British just all hand over fist tried to change everything.
Yeah,
And
the Spanish wanted really, the Spanish wanted three things from the people they conquered. They wanted you to make a show of following their religion. They wanted you to obey their laws, and they they wanted credit for they wanted to take all your money.
yeah, they
So if
took
you were
their
able to give them money and bow before a crucifix, they would let you go. They would just leave you be. You know, after they conquered you, but
and the Dutch
details.
just traded. The Dutch were like, "Okay, you have this, I give you this. Let's trade."
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Portuguese were the best ones because the Portuguese would find some inhospitable island on the edge of your coast and say, "We'd like to live there. And in exchange for living there, we will buy or sell anything." And really, that's the best relationship you can have with a massive seafaring empire.
I mean, yeah, it's probably not the worst effort out there, but it it just goes to show the Spaniards really did do that, and they really explored as well. The other colonial nations, with the small exception of the French, they did explore a little bit, but the Spanish just kept marching. It was just like a death march the whole time. I mean, you have De Soto's adventures to the Mississippi and back. You had Cortez in Mexico. You had Pizarro in South America. You had the few that went up the California coast. Like, they just truly wanted to convert the world and see what was out there.
Yeah. There's a reason why the Queen of Spain, a woman named Isabella, is known is often referred to as greedy for souls, because she really wanted to convert the entire goddamn planet to Catholicism.
The Spanish really got a taste for conversion after the Reconquista, in which Spain had managed to recapture much of the Iberian Peninsula from the Islamic Moors.
Yeah. That's a whole nother subject.
But that momentum carried forward, and boy, oh,
Yeah,
howdy did it.
yeah, very aggressive, very religious people coming out of that and directly into the new world.
But it is interesting, like jumping back to the modern day now, because South America is relatively homogenized in terms of language and in terms of that Spanish heritage, though each country now has their own national identity. But Peru really leans heavily on the Incan influence, even though many of the adjacent countries have had some level of Incan settlement. Because it
Yeah,
was the capital, because it was there, their capital is still Cusco, and it's a city that's almost 2 miles up in the air.
yeah, and it's been continuously inhabited from the Inca Empire on through to the modern day. It's even contains a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In 1983, a part of the city was recognized as having universal historic value because it was the capital of the Inca Empire, which was very unique in its approach to governance and city planning.
Yeah. But figured this would be a great topic to talk about. We've jokingly referenced the Disney movie a few times, but they do a fairly good job at highlighting some of the cultural aspects of the city of Cusco.
Yeah,
Considering where Pacu and his family lived
yeah, yeah.
versus
No, that's
Cusco having never ventured to that part of the city.
yeah. There's a very distinct, you know, there's a very distinct class divide. Pacha's on a hill in the middle of the rural nowhere. Cusco's living in this very urban center.
Anyways,
Neither of them really know how to get from one to the other.
I think that's probably a great point for us to wrap up this here episode. Let us know what your thoughts are down below, and we will see you in the next episode, which, spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about a great figure in history, correct?
Yeah, and and it's also a very special episode for us at Historical Humans because it will mark our 100th ever podcast episode.
Oh, really?
Yep, the next
Ooh.
episode will be number 100. So hopefully you'll come along to celebrate with us 100 episodes of this little show.
Century episode. Woo! All right. We will see y'all then.